welcome to this lesson on regression analysis. In the previous lesson, we looked at correlation analysis, and we are looking at the relationship of two variables. In this lesson, we'll look at association of variables that are more than two variables. So we want to find the estimation of the relationship between the dependent variable and one or more independent variables. And in this, for example, if we would use the previous example that we had about teenage pregnancy. So we had a number of variables: self-efficacy, parental guidance, peer pressure, age. So we want to find out what's the relationship of these variables towards the teenage pregnancy. So to what extent do these independent variables relate to the dependent variable? So we are actually looking for a correlation coefficient, the relationship, the extent the independent variables relate to the dependent variable. We're also relating this to the conceptual framework, and we are looking at to what extent do the independent variables explain the predicted variable. So that's what we actually are going to look at. And this is the coefficient of determination. It's like this. You had a model, you had a conceptual framework. Now, once you have corrected the data, to what extent were you correct? At what extent did you guess right about the model that you have developed or that conceptual framework? Now, let us look at the scale of significance. So the scale of significance runs from 0.00 to 0.05. So once the values fall within 0.05 and 0.00, then they're actually falling within the significant region, which means it's a significant factor. So this is how we look at those values. If it falls beyond 0.05, then that variable is not a significant variable to actually influence the dependent variable. Now, with this, then let's look at the data to apply a regression model in the data set that we have. Now, in this data set, we had the gender, we had religion, we had efficacy, parental guidance, peer pressure, teenage pregnancy, and finally, age. Now, we want to run a regression model to find out to what extent do these variables actually influence or affect teenage pregnancy? What extent does age? All working together. So we go to analyze in SPSS, and after that we go to regression analysis, then we go to linear regression. And in this linear regression, we actually look at that pop-out window where we see dependent variable and independent variable. So we select the dependent variable. And remember, in our conceptual framework, the dependent variable was teenage pregnancy. So we select teenage pregnancy and put it in the as a dependent variable. Then we take the other variable. So we want to take self-efficacy as an independent variable. We want to take extent of influence by parents. I want to take about peer pressure, and we also want to take age into that. So we have developed a model that has a dependent variable and the independent variable. And now let us run it and see the results. And there are the results. So the results are in 3 tables. The first table is the model summary. And in that model summary, you can see the R showing the predictors. So we have the predictors, and mind you, the predictors were the independent variable. So we have predictors age, extent of being influenced by parents, extent of parents' guidance, self-efficacy, and so on. So these are the predictors. And what R did we get? So the R, that is correlation coefficient of 0.973. And this it means that the relationship is very strong, which means these predictors have a strong relationship with the dependent variable, which is teenage pregnancy altogether. Then we look at R squared, and R squared is the coefficient of determination. To what extent have we, in our model, did we guess correctly that these are really the variables that are associated with teenage pregnancy? What extent? So here we find a 0.947, and this we convert it to a percentage by multiplying by 100, so we get 94%, which means that our model, our theory is 94%, correct as regards to explaining the phenomena of teenage pregnancy. And so then we go to the next table. The next table is the ANOVA table, which actually will pick only one component to look there, is the significance. And the significance there is 0.000, which means it's a significant model. Remember, in our analysis, in our measurement, we said the more closer we move to 0.00, then the more significant it is. And if it's below 0.05, then it's a significant model. So this is a significant model. So the scale of significance runs from 0.00 to 0.05. So once the values fall within 0.05 and 0.00, then they're actually falling within the significant region, which means it's a significant factor. So this is how we look at those values. If it falls beyond 0.05, then that variable is not a significant variable to actually influence the dependent variable. Then we go to the other table, which is the table of coefficients. And in this table of coefficients, we want to see the contribution of each of those variables on their own separately. So we look at self-efficacy. For example, we say, I am well focused. To what extent is it contributing to this model? So we look at the standardized coefficients, the beta, and we convert those values also to 100% percentage. So we find that if we convert 0.075 times 100, we are getting actually 7% their contribution. Then the next one, we are getting extent of parental guidance. We are getting, which is 0.04. We are getting 4% as a contribution towards teenage pregnancy. And then moreover, these two variables, they have a negative sign, which means they are contributing in an inverse way. Then we look at the extent of being influenced by parents, and we get a value there, standardized beta coefficients of 0.121, which is, when you convert to percentage, you get 12%. So that is the contribution. But now look at age. Age has beta coefficient of 0.960. When you convert to 100%, then we get 96%. This means that age is the most or the better contributor to teenage pregnancy, has a higher association of teenage pregnancy.